Okay, so it's 4 p.m. here now in sunny Finland, so I believe it's time to get started. First of all, welcome everyone. It's really great to have you all joining our webinar today. We have a really interesting topic lined up for you, as we're going to be talking about our Bring Your Own Cloud, or BYOC in short, deployment option, and how it helps you to lower your cloud data infrastructure costs. My name is Mikko Röntönen. I'm from the product marketing team here in Aiven. And today I'm joined by Chris Butler, our senior partner solution architect, who is really the expert in this topic. I will be doing most of the presentation today. After the presentation, we'll have a Q&A session. So I'd really urge everyone to post your questions during the presentation, so that you don't forget them, using the questions chat that you should see in this webinar UI. But before letting Chris loose, let's actually put this BYOC a bit into context in the Aiven offering. So maybe if you can change the slide indeed. So this busy slide is actually showing the picture of the Aiven platform, starting from the core services that provide the open source services for streaming, storing, and analyzing of data. And they are obviously the core things that our customers are looking to use in their projects. But there's a lot of things around the services that we provide in the platform related to security, networking, scalability, compliance, resilience, tooling, and all kinds of integrations to different types of data sources and observability tools, for example. So that's really what we provide in the Aiven platform. But then there's also this area of which is shown here as deployment. And that obviously talks about the different public cloud platforms that we support. So AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure as examples. But that's also the area where the Bring Your Own Cloud actually falls into. It is an option to deploy on those major hyperscalers in a different way, so that you can actually reach certain benefits by doing that. Now, all of the other capabilities in the platform remain the same. And one thing to note here is that even if we only recently really started to talk about the Bring Your Own Cloud a bit more in details, it's not really a new thing for us. It's something that we actually did the first custom deployment already for 5 years ago for one of our early customers then. And we have done many more over the years. Here's a couple of statements from customers that are using the BYOC deployment option at the moment, talking about the benefits that they see there. And the fact that we have been doing a lot of these deployments has really taught us a lot about the different kinds of customer setups, networking, etc., from where we have learned to deploy these in large scale. But maybe that's enough for background at the moment. So I'll hand over to Chris now to explain BYOC in more details.
Certainly. Thank you, Mikko. And quick, brief introduction from me. I am a senior partner solution architect with Aiven. I work with our hyperscaler partners as well as our customers in looking to help lower their costs and lower their spend on their open source database services. So let's talk about some of the deployment models, and we'll segue into more BYOC specific conversations after that. So we have the Aiven platform represented by that top blue bar. In our standard deployment, you're able to work with multiple cloud hosts. We of course have the major hyperscalers listed there in AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud, as well as DigitalOcean and UpCloud. Those standard deployments are going to run from the standard Aiven console, and you're running in what we call our tenant. So you may hear us drop that word every now and then. That tenancy means that the service and the VMs belong to us. In the second option, where you're looking for more of enhanced compliance environment, those are offered specifically in the major hyperscalers at this point in time. You're still running on Aiven's cloud account, but you're getting some of the additional network functionality, network security that you would have pertinent to those hyperscalers listed. Then in bring your own cloud, this is where things get interesting, and what we're here to talk about today is you're still running those same managed, fully managed Aiven services, but you're running them in your own cloud environment. So if you have a mature DevOps or infrastructure team, they can still keep their VPC peering strategies, any of the network capabilities, instance types that you have running, all residing in your own cloud. And then we have another feature there on the far right-hand side that is specific to AWS, to have the capability to run in your own data center via AWS outposts. Very high level overview of the way the BYOC architecture works. You have your applications that are already running in your cloud account that are accessing Aiven services. And both of those are running in your own VPCs on your hyperscaler cloud provider environments. The way that we interact with those to achieve that level of support, that white glove support that you're used to with Aiven, is through a proxy. This is typically set up as a Bastion DMZ, and we're able to access and monitor and service your Aiven services through that VPC peering IPsec tunnel back into our Aiven service management plane. You'll notice on the right-hand side at the top, the mention of Aiven console, CLI, the REST APIs, our Terraform provider, our Kubernetes operators. That same functionality stays intact, going again through that management plane via REST API, back through the proxy, giving us the capability to manage your services. And again, already have mentioned this briefly, but the Aiven experience stays the same. So if you're familiar with Aiven as a current customer, you know that when you're setting up new services within your projects, your account, you would select a hyperscaler. In this graphic, we have AWS as our selected cloud provider. And then you go and select a service region. So when you're building out your services in your own hyperscaler account, your BYOC, we have that mechanism denoted down there. You'll see that highlighted in the red at the very bottom of the select service region. That is a custom. We're calling it custom in this case for the purpose of demo, but that would be the region name that would be given to your BYOC spaces. So again, experience stays the same in setting up those services. It stays the same if you're using Terraform or Kubernetes as well. So digging in a little bit into the shared responsibility matrix, or what we're calling here the BYOC shared responsibility model. So on the left-hand side, that's you, the customer. What are you responsible for? Well, setting up and managing your cloud account and your resource permissions, you still have control over that. monitoring those resource quotas and understanding if you need to scale up or scale down is something that you would want to be reticent of. And then, of course, one of the big factors in moving to BYOC is giving our customers that capability to maintain the levels of security and compliance that are needed in their current cloud infrastructures. What is Aiven responsible for? We cover that service deployment. We cover the management. So management, one of those areas of functionality, of course, is letting you know when a service is coming end of life for the version it's running. Being able to still control the backup coordination. Additionally, our current security and our high availability or resilience or elasticity is still provided to those services. And then monitoring and support for those services continue around the 4.9 SLAs, for instance. That's where that management plane is still keeping communication with your services, even though they're running in your own cloud at that time. So both customers and partners probably have questions on what the benefits would be to them in this BYOC model. So for the customer, you're able to take advantage of your cloud infrastructure discount. So any CUDs you have negotiated with your hyperscaler of choice, those are honored and able to be burned down against your commitments. So the Aiven service counts against those. If you are, especially I'll take an example of European customers, GDPR compliance is a main issue. So the capability to satisfy those legal requirements is really what BYOC allows you to perform in this situation. Ease of network setup and controls, again, that is dependent on the maturity of your DevOps and infrastructure management teams. But you control your VPCs, the VPC peering, you maintain control over those in the BYOC environment. When we bill monthly, you're not getting a separate bill from Aiven. So consolidated billing is a huge benefit and why many customers were starting to see them wanting to move into that, that billing tendency, so to speak. So consolidated billing is a key factor in why we're rolling out BYOC. And again, services are still fully managed and supported by Aiven. We can't bring that up enough. I know it comes up as questions when I'm on calls with customers about what that looks like. Rest assured, you're still getting the same quality of service, same quality of service management. We are fully managed as a platform, and we intend to continue to deliver that even if you move into your own account with your cloud provider. On the partner side, so what are some of those benefits that the partner will see? You're going to see faster burn down of your negotiated commits. Maybe customers are not spinning up services with great frequency. When they move to Aiven, they start using more services in that cloud provider, moving those into BYOC. We see those network, we see those infrastructure burn down occurrences happening. You also have the capability through moving into BYOC to gain some visibility of the infrastructure of the services. So you would see the VMs, for instance, running if you're logged into one of the hyperscaler consoles and understand how that spend is tracking through the month. And again, our partners are getting that same level of service from us. So if there's a critical issue with an Aiven Kafka service, Aiven for OpenSearch, Aiven for Postgres, ClickHouse, et cetera, we are taking care of that service management. Again, maintaining backups, working through end-of-life situations, allowing the customer to have that shared experience, and leveraging us for that deeper back-end knowledge and SME type of input. So this graphic here is probably not to scale, but what we're showing in this case is on the left-hand side is what you would have in a standard Aiven billing procedure, where Aiven has our own built-in infrastructure costs that are included in that service cost. When you move into the BYOC pricing, you're still paying for that Aiven service, of course, but you're getting that added value of your own discounted infrastructure costs, which brings down your TCO, that total cost of ownership. You would use cost savings plans in this case to determine what those discounted infrastructure costs may be, depending on your network traffic, your data storage, the instance types you're looking to use, as well as your CUDs. Those come into play here, as we've mentioned earlier, and several other billing and pricing features that would help you save money on compute, network, and your storage costs. Marketplaces and BYOC, the better together story. So you can bring BYOC into play through Marketplace. This graphic is really a matrix of what the differences are. So we'll go row by row here as an explanation. So in Marketplace, you need to be aware you're still running in that Aiven cloud account. When you move into BYOC though for Marketplace, you are going into your own cloud account where you have the full control of the capabilities that we mentioned in that earlier reference architecture. You're still seeing on the Marketplace side, insofar as payments, Aiven's been consolidated into one bill with the hyperscaler. So when you're spinning up Aiven through the Marketplace, you would choose a billing ID that you're using currently with your hyperscaler, place that billing ID into your Marketplace payment option, and Aiven will show up on that cloud provider's bill. So you don't get a separate bill in that case. On the BYOC, you're still getting that consolidation, but the pay is going, since it's not going through that Marketplace mechanism, you would pay your hyperscaler for the infrastructure costs, and then there is a line item there to let you know what Aiven is owed for your managed services, which can be paid again directly or combining it with that Marketplace scenario. Costs, both of them are allowing you, so on the Marketplace side, you have different levels of commits for each, right? You're allowed to burn down your commit with the Aiven services, whereas in BYOC, you're going to be burning down the commit on the infrastructure cost. On Marketplace, you're not able to use those hyperscaler discounts towards third-party products. In BYOC, you are utilizing your hyperscaler discounts towards your infrastructure. Compliance, and I do want to make a note here on that row. Those compliance features are built in, they're baked into our services already, so they carry over into the BYOC. What BYOC is doing is giving you any other strict regulations that you may have for your environments, dependent on your customers or the industry that you're working in. So we do have some requirements to move to BYOC. The first one being is that it requires an enterprise support contract. Most of the customers that we're working with already in moving to a BYOC model already have that support contract, but it is worth mentioning. Additionally, your total monthly spend must be greater than $5,000. And then there is a one-time setup fee. That's where we're getting that Bastion DMZ set up, the proxy set up to allow our management plane to speak to our services running in your own cloud account. So that one-time fee applies. But pay it once you're in BYOC, that cost is not brought up again. So 3 areas of cost optimization. So first area around hyperscaler infrastructure, it gives you greater control of your own infrastructure. Of course, we've probably been implying that heavily during this presentation so far, but it can't be overstated. Again, because you've probably negotiated commitments and have some significant discounts applied to your infrastructure. You have the capability to apply any hyperscaler negotiated savings plans to your Aiven service infrastructure. What is the impact? It's probably the most important thing. What we have seen in our movement to this model with enterprise customers is about a 30 to 50% infrastructure cost savings. Part of that too, that would come into play is Aiven's advisory role with you. We're very collaborative when we're working with our customers, so looking to right size you. If you're moving from, say, a relational database to an analytics database such as ClickHouse, a lot of times we'll see the speed of that open source project, the performance of ClickHouse offering can really enable you to go into instance types with lesser compute involved. So we're here to work with you on those discussions. Open source service usage. So the second point, I'll take a moment here to mention that not only was Aiven born in the cloud, not only are we a digital native offering, but open source is at the heart. It's really our mantra as we move forward in selecting new services. We have an OSPO, open source project office, that is attached to, many of them are contributors in the various services that we provide, be it Kafka, OpenSearch, ClickHouse, Postgres. We understand that single point services are not a reality, right? Nothing runs in a vacuum. You're usually not just running Kafka, you're wanting to process analytical workloads, or you're wanting a caching database as well, so you can maybe replay history for those real-time streaming when you're developing new applications for your environment. So getting those gains from Aiven as a multi-service allows you to really maximize other open source technologies. We are multi-cloud, so a lot of customers will establish a multi-cloud strategy to run different services across the cloud. As an example I would give on that would be around disaster recovery situations. You may want to have in a secondary cloud your backup there. So what does this mean for you? The impact is greater developer productivity, one-stop shop, so to speak, for spinning up services and still having that ease of use through the Aiven console or your Terraform scripts, for example, to spin up services for new apps or for development or quality pipelines. And because we are open source, there are no hidden end user license agreements. What you're paying for is that managed service, really. We'll take Kafka as an example. We don't charge you for connectors. That is baked into the Kafka service itself. So when you're spinning up connectors and you need, say, a sync into S3 storage, or you want to sync into BigQuery, for example, those are there for you, and there's no overriding proprietary code or charging extra for what we feel the service should just naturally provide. Strategic partnership and expert support. So I've used the collaboration word already here, but we take a very collaborative approach. Our pre-sales organization does a very consultative angle of selling and really learning about what your applications are. That comes into that competitive pricing where we look to help you right size your infrastructure. The 5 pillars of enterprise engagement, that is an internal Aiven framework that we engage with our customers on to help them see how they can maximize their spend, really maximize their revenue and lower their spend should be the better term that I would use there. You still gain, again, I mentioned the OSPO, our open source experts are available as SMEs on our different services. A major point that a lot of the enterprise customers have already seen and love is gaining that access to our product team. So you do have influence on the product roadmap. That can't be overstated. I think that having that access to product management and some of those direct channels into what we're developing in our services is really important to make sure you're getting what you need for your environments. And again, the dedicated support still remains intact from both the account team and our support teams. Impacts, I think I mentioned this, we're proactive in our discussions around right-sizing your environments, and we do have the multi-cloud expertise, whether you're wanting to approach it from a DR situation or just have multi-cloud dependent on region availability and the hyperscalers. So summary, what are the BYOC benefits for you? I think we've been speaking with these with greater clarity, but a summary slide is a great way to kind of tie things together. So title of the event is lowering your TCO, and that's the first main point that we want to establish on our presentation today is lowering that total cost of ownership. You get the full benefits of your cloud infrastructure deals, as well as the usability of the cost saving plans, being able to tap into your CUDs that you may have, and then working with us directly to right size and work on strategies to save further on your infrastructure. Keep your data under control. I think this is an important one that hasn't been mentioned yet, but the data is staying in your cloud, right? That's a major sticking point for a lot of customers that are requiring their additional control over their own data. You have the capability to layer additional security on top, specific to your region or industry, on top of our already best-in-class compliance. And then you get the enjoyment of the managed experience. So we're handling all of those service tweaks or issues that may apply in your environments. So you're not losing that full managed service experience. And the 4.9 SLAs, 99.99% SLA time, that is something that we love to tout and have the numbers to prove it. Again, with your data staying under your own control. And now we'll open it up to Q&A. So if you can, please enter any questions you may have, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Great. Thanks, Chris, for a really great walkthrough on BYOC. I think it was very clear and good presentation. But indeed, now it would be time for all of you to post your questions to make sure that everything is clear after today's session. We have a few questions here, but we have more time, or we have time to cover more. So please keep on writing those still. But yeah, maybe the first question was a bit answered already here at the end of your presentation. It's about whether Aiven provides an uptime SLA for BYOC deployments, and what is it and how can you guarantee it?
Right, so that SLA number comes from our standard deployment. Because we're going in there, if you recall the reference architecture, we have the capability through that Bastion DMZ, the proxy setup, to still have the maintenance and monitoring of your services applied. So that SLA continues, even though it's running on the customer infrastructure at that point, we're still maintaining that level of observance over those services. So that's where the number still translates over into the 4 nines for our SLAs.
Yeah, and one question is about the pricing. So standard Aiven pricing includes all networking costs. How about in BYOC? Who pays for networking?
So the networking is going to be billed by your cloud provider, your hyperscaler. What you're getting billed by Aiven is that service and the management of that service. So yeah, network cost, the VMs that you're running on, any negotiations around the hardware, essentially, data storage as well, that is going to be billed directly from the hyperscaler. So that's the big advantage, right, of going with the BYOC route, is you've probably negotiated better discounts with your cloud provider than what we would pay to the cloud provider, which is what you have in the standard Aiven deployment. So hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, and then we have another one here. It's saying, great presentation. Are there any new features in the BYOC launch that weren't present in the previous deployments on customer environments?
So the features of the services, those are available immediately. So if we have a new feature in one of our services, that carries over immediately into Aiven. So that's a great question, because that speaks to the whole management plane discussion that I've been bringing up. You're getting that same experience. So it's not just an experience via the UI, it's actually the experience of the service underneath. So if we're able to push a feature, let's say, into our OpenSearch service, maybe you're looking for different types of storage mechanisms, for instance. If that feature is available through the standard Aiven deployment, that's going to continue to carry over into both the marketplace as well as the BYOC offering. So hopefully that answers your question.
And then we have a couple here in one question. First of all, do we need to open ports for Aiven?
That's a good question. That's probably requires a more detailed response. I know that so in an enterprise situation, you would have a named solution architect who would go over those steps in detail with you. The only port you're opening up, to my knowledge, is that port to allow us to communicate through that Bastion DMZ. So if you remember that reference architecture, once that's opened up, you're controlling that VPC peering into your infrastructure where the Aiven services are running. So we can provide greater detail for you on that, Simon, but that would be my starter answer. The only thing we need to have access to is that DMZ. So the going through the proxy through an IPsec tunnel is where we would need an opening.
And then there's the second part of the question, which is the Aiven management plane deployed once per cloud account or once per deployment?
It is going to be once per deployment because that experience is staying the same, I believe. I would need to check on that. But my understanding is, as you saw in those services there, when you're provisioning a service against each hyperscaler, so our example showed AWS in that case, and then you had a BYOC region, essentially, which is your BYOC infrastructure, your own infrastructure. If you were to move into the Google side, you would get that there as well. I think that's maybe a greater question too around the billing, the way the billing works if you're going into a multi-cloud environment. So Simon, I think you provided that question. We can contact you back with a more definitive answer on that, but that's a great question.
And then we have a question, what happens when the management plane or the deployment is accidentally misconfigured by the customer?
That's where you gain access to us from a collaborative situation, right? I think I'd need more detail into what that question is asking. Sorry to call you out again, Simon, but these are great questions you're asking me. If the question is more around what's pertaining to maybe a specific instance type, that would be a discussion you would need to have with your named SA to understand. Typically, though, we're involved in that process, so I would say be proactive in asking us before you get into that situation. I know that things happen when you're spinning up services and allowing access for, say, your developers to have the capability to spin up a new Kafka broker. But I think keeping those lines of communication is key to making sure that that doesn't happen. But we would get involved if that situation were to occur in the spirit of partnership. Great question.
Now it seems we don't have further questions at the moment, unless someone is now typing. In that case, as we don't have more questions coming in at the moment, I would really like to thank everyone for participating and hope that you found our webinar today informative and useful, and hope to see you also in our future webinars. Yeah, and I'll give one more reply. You're welcome, Simon. I saw that's what you were typing for the last question, so you're very welcome. Please reach out, anyone on the call, if you have further questions, and we'll do some follow-up with you, Simon. Just reach out to us, and we'll be in contact. So thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure.